welcome to tonight's show. There's an important topic we would like to discuss this evening. It's the effect of gender balance and equality on a country's prosperity. Firstly, gender inequality is currently one of the most talked about issues in this era. It is an issue that has affected thousands of people, actually millions of people, regardless of whether they're male or female. The fact that women are being actively disadvantaged and discriminated must have a significantly negative impact on a country's economic performance. Because the work potential of roughly half of its population, is not being used to its full potential and capacity. Our hypothesis states that more gender balance and equality a country has, the more economically prosperous it is. Firstly, I'd like to talk about education and employment opportunities for women. Children who receive more education are likely to earn more, but girls typically benefit more from extra education than boys. In many developing countries, this benefit seems greater from secondary and tertiary education than from primary education. Women will also receive higher wages from formal sector than from agricultural sector, implying that expanding those opportunities for women will further alleviate poverty. A major way in which gender equality can contribute to economic growth is by increasing the stock of human capital, which we will also talk about later on. Human capital is defined as skills, knowledge, and physical capabilities that allow the labor force to economically be productive. Human capital has a quantitative dimension and has the numbers of workers, and a quantitative dimension as the productive skills possessed by an individual worker.
Thank you very much, Professor Daniel. I'll take it from here. Basically, better educated girls and women can undertake higher value economic activity, for why it is essential to educate women as well as their male counterparts, because increasing education opportunities for women allows for a greater accumulation of skills and expertise, and thus raises the growth potential of a country. Countries with high gender inequality tend to be poor, whilst countries with higher income tend to have more gender inequality. With the exception of oil rich Oman, Bahrain and Saudi Arabia, no country has been observed with both a high GDP per capita of over $10,000 and less than 90% gender equality in education. Better educated girls and women can undertake thus higher value economic activity, for why it is essential to give them the same education. So, in this chart we can see, as already mentioned before, that there's a positive correlation between gender equality and economic progress, because there's no country with a high GDP per capita of over 10,000 and less than 90% gender equality in education. Now we'll talk about the solar growth module, which is basically this. Yt equals kt to the power of a plus ht to the power of b times at times lt to the power of 1 minus a. So the solar growth module shows very well how an increase in education leads to an increase in prosperity. We will be using the idea of education as a proxy in order to illustrate the correlation between higher gender inequality and poverty of a country. That basically the less gender inequality we have, the more prosperous the country will be. Prosperity is defined here as an increase in output Y. Education leads to an increase in human capital, H, as it increases the amount of the skilled and trained workforce. Thus, an increase in H will lead to an increase in Y, which means that providing girls with a quality education at the level of their male counterparts will increase a country's economic output and thus increase its prosperity. Furthermore, a higher participation of women in the workforce leads to an increase in a country's prosperity as well. This table shows that there's a clear correlation between a high GDP per capita and a high percentage of women in the workforce. For instance, Germany has a high GDP per capita of 46,268 US dollar, which means it is a prosperous country, and at the same time it has a high percentage of women in the workforce, which is 54%. On the other hand, Afghanistan only has a GDP per capita of 664.76 US dollar, which means it is a poor country and it has only 16% of women working at the same time. This trend can be observed in all 10 countries chosen from all over the world, which shows that there's definitely a correlation between GDP per capita and percentage of women in the workforce. Furthermore, the same can be seen in the solo growth module again, which we have here. So, if more women join the workforce, thanks to improvement in regards to gender policy and equal education, the amount of labor force L will rise, which will then cause Y to rise as well, leading to an increased output and thus higher prosperity of the country. Furthermore, there's ample evidence that when women are able to develop their full labor market potential, there can be significant macroeconomic gains. GDP per capita losses caused by gender gaps in the labor market have been estimated to be up to 27% in certain regions. It has been estimated further that raising the female labor participation rate to country-specific male levels would, for instance, raise GDP in the United States by 5%, in Japan by 9%, in the United Arab Emirates by 12%, and in Egypt by 34%, which is quite a lot. Based on International Labour Organization data, it is estimated that out of 165 million women worldwide who have the potential to contribute more fully to their national economies, 812 million live in emerging and developing nations. So we can see that this is clearly a problem more of like developing nations, for why we need to especially aim at improving gender policies in developing nations to maximize the economic potential of a country.
Thank you, Natascha. I'll take it from here. In 35 countries, women do not have the same inheritance rights as men to inherit. Even when there are laws in place around the world, women are often pressured to give up their inheritance. There was a theory which stated if one had more of a passive income, one would therefore work less, since there is a consistent cash flow coming into the household. Evidence goes against this theory by showing that women who benefited from this new law put in place in India meant that they would inherit property and thus make more unearned income, and would offer them a wide range of opportunities to make more money, leading to an increase of bargaining power within a household. Consequently, women who benefited from this law were more likely to have a longer position in the workforce. These results suggest that increasing women's equality and autonomy, whether financial or otherwise, increase the likelihood of them joining the labor force. Now, linking back to what I mentioned before, the solid growth model, as L increases, output increases, which will lead to an increase to economic prosperity.
So after doing an extensive study on the impacts of gender equality on the country's GDP and its prosperity, we come to the conclusion that it's extremely important for a country to have the right gender politics and policies in place, because it makes a huge difference, as you can see, that countries which have equal education, equal working
Yeah.
opportunities, equal
And I
participation
do
in
agree
the
with what you have to
workplace.
say. Yes.
Those are the countries which have the higher GDP, yeah? And the
Which
countries
we've
which are doing
analysed.
better
All
internationally,
examples
which
we've
is
listed.
analysed, the charts and the solar model and everything. So we reached the conclusion
Including the
now.
GDP we've analysed in all the different countries.
So we reached the conclusion that it's extremely important to have the right gender policies. I hope you enjoyed our talk. See you next
Thank you
time.
again.